and welcome to the telecast. We're coming to you from the offices of Texas State Senator Eddie Lucio Jr. Senator Lucio, thank you for hosting us here at your Brownsville office. Senator Lucio is the Senator for Texas District number 27 in the Texas Senate, and we're here to talk about a number of issues. Immigration reform is going to be the primary one we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about also something that's very, very important, and that is the fact that, based on the fact that about 20 some odd months ago, not very long, September the 20th, 2012, the Pemex refinery in Reynosa exploded. 30 people killed. We don't know exactly how many might have been injured because that information has not necessarily been forthcoming out of Pemex. But the concern we have is the fact that had that refinery imploded and exploded by virtue of the fact that after the explosion, we're going to show it to you now, and also Senator Lucio, you see the explosion happened. You see the smoke coming because it was the northeast winds at that point coming out of the north because of the norther, obviously. All the fumes and bad stuff went south. But you see all of those big multi-million gallon tanks that were imploded on by all the, not only the fumes, of course, initially, but the fire. Had any of those tanks ruptured, that bad stuff would have gone into the nearest bar ditch, and where do you think that bar ditch led? To the Rio Grande River. This is only a few miles just from epicenter, and that'd be Mission, Hidalgo, McAllen, Edinburgh. Pretty serious situation. Of course, that was about coming up on 2 years in September, but at this particular point, we've also had this year a Pemex chemical leak killed fish. That water came in south of Falcon Dam, and people getting bottled water in McAllen and other cities in the predominantly northern edges of your district, and pretty concerning on my part. And so we're trying to get the word out and have some evaluation on the part of Texas Department of Public Safety, TCEQ, and other entities to tell us what planning needs to be taking place to make sure we're planning for this eventuality. It exploded when I was at K Rio, a news director back in '67, right around the Beulah time. I went over to the same refinery and exploded and had a similar situation, not apparently as bad as the one where 30 people were killed, but it's a what if. Who would be responsible for taking care of us, providing gas masks if whatever explodes is toxic and deadly? Number one, because it takes 3 minutes without air and you're going to die. It takes about 3 days without water, you're going to be in trouble. And it takes about 2 or 3 weeks without food, you're going to be in trouble. So we have air and we have water pollution if whatever would happen in Pemex gets into our river, and we have no control of that Pemex refinery. Any solution in your mind of what we need to do, at least to prepare, since we have no say in how that refinery is run?
My first thought is obviously that this is an international issue impacting us here at the state of Texas. The river is an international river. It is the only source of water we have in this area of the state. We do have, through TCEQ and Texas Water Development Board agencies, we do have ability to address issues that impact us here, even internationally. But I think it's something that our federal government should, be on top of, and safety in any kind of toxic operations right across the river.
Downwind.
Downwind to us, it impacts us because everything comes from the south primarily. I've always told those that measure, the contents of the wind, the air pollution in this area of the state, to take into consideration that a lot of that comes in to us from Mexico, and that we shouldn't be penalized in any way because of pollution here in the valley, because quite frankly, in my opinion, the majority of that pollution really comes from south of us. So it's a very serious issue, obviously, one that requires the intervention of our federal government, the immediate intervention. And I think that we have to take up and consider what we can do during the legislative session that starts in January in Austin. Meantime, I think that we should gather all the facts and everything that has happened since then, and turn that information over to the office of the governor, and also the different agencies that might have some kind of responsibility to address this issue, and also the interim studies that are taking place in the Natural Resources Committee in the Senate and the Environmental Committee in the House. All those individuals should be apprised of this situation here.
So whatever programs and telecasts we do about this issue needs to be provided to the Natural Resources Committee?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. They have interim studies going on right now, and it is important for them to inject this information into those studies if it deals with air pollution, if it deals with water quality in our lakes and rivers, and of course the Rio Grande, which is of major importance not only to us from Brownsville to El Paso, but also to Mexico. Absolutely. You know, it impacts both sides of the border equally.
Well, the watershed for the Rio Grande Valley predominantly is in Mexico. That's where most of the water comes, below Falcon Dam. It starts in Mexico, just like the Pemex oil spill or whatever happened to kill those fish in the incident we had earlier this year. So we have seen that occur as of this particular moment. And you know, it appeared to me, having gone back to Beulah, and that's where I made my first name really in the valley for coverage of Hurricane Beulah. In Beulah, we had several days of preparing the people, and we're broadcasting from the Brownsville Weather Bureau, get ready, evacuate, get food, water in your cupboards, and so forth. If something like this happened and polluted our water, it's immediate, it's now, and it happens instantaneously.
Everything shuts down. Our hospitals, our schools, our universities, our businesses, everything that requires the water that we use today. In all those operations would have to obviously be shut down, and it become standstill, so to speak, and that would be havoc. I mean, for us to have to go through something like that. But I think it requires that we sit down, industry, governments, on both sides of the border, to address these issues, find out specifically what's going on both sides of the border, including our agricultural community, which I think has a major spot in this whole discussion.
Well, because the ag water is where the raw water comes out of the river from the agriculture irrigation districts, and then that water goes to the communities, and they make potable water out of that. So you're exactly correct. If any kind of sensors or cameras or things like that sample that water, that needs to happen right at the edge of the river where those water pumping plants are. So you're exactly on target. Plus, if we put agriculture irrigation water and it has some kind of contamination, nuclear or anything like that, or some kind of oil getting on our fields, that would be double difficult, because that would hurt the agriculture economy, which is very important still to the valley.
That's correct, and again, we look at the desalination issue and how important that particular issue is with us here in Texas, not only in other parts of the state, but here especially, if something like this was to happen. But I don't think that those operations could fulfill the need of water as we have it today, with present desalination processes that are going on. It wouldn't, I don't think it'd fill 1% of the need, unfortunately.
Well, one of the most important things that you're doing right now, you're having hearings at the Capitol as we speak, in desal. And desal has got to be important, because if, in fact, let's say the Pemex plant were to contaminate our river water for months or on end, or whatever were to occur, then desal has got to be your alternate source of water.
That's right. And we're going we're going to have a major delegation of legislators come to the Valley at the end of July that will get a first-hand look at our operations. But we're doing brackish water mostly, and because it's less expensive than desalination of seawater, but we are endeavoring in that as well. And I think this is going to be something that's going to happen all over the state of Texas in the years to come.
We'll come back and give you more information as we continue to develop this coverage, because we're going to continue to cover this up into the session and during the session, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. Now, Senator, one of the main issues that we want to discuss with you today is the fact that we've got all of these refugee children and their mothers, in some cases fathers, some cases unaccompanied children coming to our shore and to our place in the valley, Brownsville in particular, where we are today, and McAllen, other end of your district. And these children are the high part of a major story nationally because of international issues that involve in Central America and things of that kind. What should be done with these children? Because former Texas Governor George Bush, as president, signed into law an actual law on the books that requires the Obama administration to take those children, treat them humanely, send them to family members if they're anywhere in the United States, and or put them in foster homes and take care of them. So we can't really deport them because of U.S. law at this point.
Well, that's exactly what we need to do, and I think everybody has to come together.
It's already on the books as law.
But that's, there's talk of sending them back, and there's people, which really saddens me, holding up signs telling them to go back to their countries. We have to understand that this is very much a humanitarian issue. These children, no fault at their own, have been exploited, have been run out of their own countries. They've been in harm's way. They've been utilized by criminal interest in both their countries and Mexico, and quite frankly, we can't turn our back to them. I think we need to obviously make sure that as they enter, they're actually giving themselves up here at the border. They're not criminals. They're not trying to come in here, steal anything or hurt anyone. They're looking for refuge. They're looking for someone to give them some food, and that's happening. I was very proud of Catholic Charities, the Baptist organizations, and other nonprofits who have given them clothes, food, shelter. And that's what we need to do. And it's part of what America has always been about. We just read what's on
Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island.
Give us your huddled masses.
That's what this country has been over the centuries, and if we're to continue to be the greatest country in the world, we have to continue that path. And there's not anything, and I bring this up because I often say this is the Christian thing to do. This country was founded under God. This state that we live in. We redid our pledge to insert God, one state under God, indivisible, meaning that we're a united family of Texans, of Americans, wanting to do the right thing, not only for our families, but those that seek shelter in our country. We did it for the Cubans. We've done it for people from all over the world that have come here, downtrodden, completely disillusioned about, any hope in the future that they might have based on the lives they were living. So we need to find that compassion deep in our hearts and understand that, this is the right thing to do. I know it costs money, and our resources at times are limited, but if we can spend trillions you know, in other parts of the national budget and in our own budgets, then we can spend a little bit more to make sure they're healthy, they're fed, they're clothed, they're sheltered, and I think that we'll be at peace with ourselves by doing that, and they can find some comfort in knowing that there are people in this world, and especially in America, that can give them the hope they're looking for.
Is there something in it for the country in particular if we let these 50 to 90,000 children come to our shores and be legalized in some way, even if not given a U.S. citizenship? We'll have the answer to that question when we return to this telecast, so stay. Welcome back to the program. We're with Senator Eddie Lucio Jr., the senator for Texas Senate District 27, goes from McAllen, Brownsville North, all the way to the edge of the city of Corpus Christi, in the Corpus Christi city limits. Now, when we went to the break, the question was, if we let these children come to our country and stay here, and let's say they bring their parents with them, the parents would be someone who immediately could go into the workforce. If they're unskilled, they could help us out in ag, which half of the ag people and workers in our nation are undocumented in some way at this particular moment. And the children, since we in the United States are not having babies anymore, we're going to need somebody coming down the road in about 10 years or so, 15, to be in the workforce or become a doctor or go to college and become something else. So could we use these children coming in, since we're not, as Richard Cortez, the Mayor of McAllen would say, we're not growing the future workers, so how about letting these kids come as a refugee and become part of our workforce down the road?
Well, I think it's going to take a generation or two for them to become the doctors and the lawyers and the public officials, but they can get there, and that's not a bad thing. I think all of us at one point came from somewhere, no matter who we are.
The Tea Party was
well, my good friend, and I say that sincerely, Senator Cruz and I have had wonderful conversations on this particular issue and others, and he understands that America is great because of immigrants. And I hope that the whole Congress understands that as they look back at their own ancestry. I mean, they came from somewhere other than America. The Native American Indians were the ones that really were here many, many moons ago. And we're here as of late, quite frankly, because of how old this area is, or how old the world is. But anyway, seriously, I think that anyone can be educated if they're given the tools to get an education. And yes, we need workforce. I know my very, very dear, good, close friend, Bob Perry, before he died a month or two, we had a wonderful conversation on what it meant for him as a businessman to have the Hispanic, Mexican, American, Mexican workers that he had, good carpenters, bricklayers, construction workers, I mean, very hardworking people, he said, that have made me a millionaire. And, I don't exploit them. I just give them the credit that they duly deserve. So we do need them. We need them in our agricultural fields. We need them in our businesses, wherever they may work, in restaurants and hotels, golf courses. I've seen them, in the most expensive golf courses in years back. I haven't played as much golf as I'd like to, but when I do play, they're Mexican workers, whether I'm in Dallas or Austin or Houston. And we need to give credit to these people who come here in search of a job, a new life, a better life. So yes, I think that we should plan not only for our future, but for their future. And someday they might be an American, and that's going to be the greatest feeling for them. When I talk to people who have been naturalized, they can't wait to vote. They can't wait to do the things they couldn't do in their own countries and to live a fearless life, even though there's a lot of problems in our own communities. You know, we wake up and look at the news and look at all the criminal activities that are going on throughout the nation. It's a very sad thing that people would want to take somebody's life, and they do it every day. But these people are not here trying to take anybody's life. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to survive. And I can't blame them for that. I think you and I and those viewing would want to swim that river every day to get to America, to get to Texas, to find a job to take care of our families, especially if you're in the line of fire. And how many people have really been killed the last few years, let's say the last 6 years, in the Texas-Mexico border on the Mexican side? Thousands. And we're here today and gone tomorrow. The important thing is for us to share in what we have. We have a great country. And I give credit to those that have paved the way, the bridge builders of opportunities of the past. But all those bridge builders have been immigrants of some kind or another. They've been our parents, our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, and somebody's great-great-parents. And they weren't Native American Indians. They were immigrants at one point.
We'll be back with a wrap-up, so don't touch. Welcome back to the telecast. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock, with Texas State Senator Eddie Lucio, Jr. of the 27th Senatorial District of the state of Texas. There's going to be a change in leadership at the Lieutenant Governor's position, and that person, whoever that may be, whether it's Senator Vanderpute or Senator Dan Patrick, are elected to that post in November. We're going to have a new leader in your job and overseeing what you do and whatever committee assignments you get and so forth. So on that basis, we're going to go back to a day when the children's health insurance had basically been decimated. Over 100,000 children had lost their children's health insurance along the border and across the state of Texas, and $1 billion in economy had been lost coming to the region. What would happen today if a similar bill were to come up with either a Lieutenant Governor Vanderpute or a Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick?
Well, regardless of who becomes our Lieutenant Governor, it's going to take the body. It's going to take the actual membership to be able to decide that it would be a good thing to expand or to continue to cut maybe services like they did in 2011, which was a disastrous year for the people of Texas, especially those that were most needy in healthcare and education. I don't know, Ron. I anxiously await to see what the approach is. Remember one thing, that when we run for public office, regardless of who we are, Democrats, Republicans, we pledge. We sign pledge cards at times who we're going to vote for Speaker, who we're going to support maybe for Lieutenant Governor in some of the issues that he or she might have. So I don't know, but like everyone else, we anxiously await to see what transpires there. But I will say this, it'd be different. It'd be much different.
Well, we saw Dewhurst moderate his position and let that be restored, $1 billion coming from Austin to predominantly the border region, as you said in your letter to me. But a Dan Patrick who has voted against the budget the last two sessions because the cuts to education and health care were not severe enough. You would anticipate as Lieutenant Governor, he would be an anti-funding of health care and education, predominant dollars coming to the border region. And that's frightening to many business people along the border and all business persons from I-10 south to the Rio Grande.
Well, we all know that the Tea Party Republican stands for a smaller government. They stand for a lesser budget. And the interesting thing here will be since John Corona lost and Senator Dewell in Dallas lost, which we considered traditional Republicans, how the other traditional Republicans are going to react to to that in terms of preparing themselves for the next next election. So I think the chamber will become quite conservative. That being the case, it depends on the number of senators that she can get to support this effort. If you don't get to 21, you can't do much, you know? So,
But there's been rumors that Dan Patrick would eliminate the two-third rule and go to majority vote.
well, but even if you don't do that, it would be hard for us. We do have enough Democrats, I think, to also keep a bill from coming on there. So we have some compromising powers still, regardless if Leticia Vanderpute or Dan Patrick gets elected. But still, I live with hope, Ron. I live with hope that we can show, you know, what the need is and how bad it's going to be if we don't address that need in the future.
To go back to the beginning of the telecast, we will continue. We will provide all copies of all interviews we do with hospitals preparing for a Pemex meltdown in a refinery across the North in Mexico. We will provide all that to you so you can make sure you assist us in getting that record to the Natural Resources Committee in both the Senate and the House. Thank you very much for being with us on the program here today. Thank you for joining us here on this program. Till next time, adios.